Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 29th and tonight's classic is Psycho. Now, I thought I had seen this movie before, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I just saw part of it or just skimmed around it because a lot of the stuff in the movie that I watched today I don't remember ever seeing before. Anyway, whatever the case, Psycho is another one of the huge ones. It's right up there with The Exorcist and The Shining when it comes to being iconic and influential in the horror genre. Directed by Alfred Hitchcock and released in 1960, Psycho got the reputation for being one of the most shocking movies ever made. And the shower scene has become one of the most iconic scenes in any horror movie. By the way, with the bathtub in Les Diaboliques and the shower in Psycho, it seems like horror directors don't want anybody bathing. But for me personally, this movie was mostly a mixed bag. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. There's a lot of really good ideas in here, and there's the potential for something absolutely incredible, but overall, I'm going to give this one a soft no. It's kind of hard to talk about the plot at all without going into what a lot of people would probably consider spoilers, but there really are two twists in this movie, and I'll only really be giving away the first one, which pretty much everybody already knows. One of the most different things about Psycho is that it spends pretty much almost half the movie establishing the story of this one character, Marion Crane, I believe her name is, and her exploits. She I think on a whim, basically, steals $40,000, which back then was the equivalent of $350,000. And she runs away, and in her travels and running off, she ends up staying at a hotel. And when she's at that hotel, she's in the shower, and the scene happens, and she gets stabbed to death by somebody whose face we never see, but has the clothing and hair of a woman. And, of course, the caretaker of this motel, Norman Bates, talked about having a mother up in the house right next to it, so the most likely assumption is that it's her, even though you never see the person's face. But apparently this is a regular thing at the Bates Motel because once Norman actually comes across the body, he disposes of it without really batting an eye. Though I will say they took way too long in the disposal of the body and cleaning up the crime scene part of the movie. I actually looked at it and it's 10 minutes of basically nothing happening. It's basically just him going into the room, mopping, cleaning up the blood, moving the body, putting the body in a car, and then pushing the car into a lake. That's it, and that was 10 minutes of screen time. Much like Scream from a couple days ago, this movie is very padded. It's a movie that really could have been about 80 minutes long, but for some reason they felt they needed to stretch it out to almost 2 hours. One of the most notorious things about Psycho is that it spends half the movie setting up who you think is the main character, but that character dies halfway through the movie and you get treated to a completely different story than what you were expecting. I'm sure that was really good for shocks at the time, but if you know the plot, or heck, if you've even seen the movie before, that essentially makes from a third to the half of the movie seem kind of pointless and not needed. I mean, yeah, some of the things they set up, like the fact that she ran off with a bunch of stolen money, is what leads to them coming to the hotel, but if you're just going to make this a very, 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 very long opening kill scene, I really feel like they could have shortened it. Another place where they could have cut the fat and made this movie a lot shorter than it ended up being. One of the most famous things about this movie is Anthony Perkins' performance as Norman Bates. He does a very good job. When you first see the guy, he really just seems like a normal, kind of awkward, doofy sort of guy. But there are little flashes of something very disturbing about him. There's a lot of times where he just seems to turn off all the emotion in his face and it's just calculating. It's very weird to watch. It's not outright scary, but it's definitely off-putting. While Psycho does have a lot of very good ideas in it, it's mostly hindered by two things. The first one is its incredibly slow pace, and also the fact that they focused way too long on a lot of things that didn't seem to need that much focusing on. The second problem with it is the way that they execute the final twist of the movie. The first twist was that who we thought was the main character gets killed halfway through. The second twist comes much later, at the very end of the movie. And you might have even been able to guess what it is, considering the way that I phrased some of the stuff I was talking about when I was, describing the plot. I really feel like if they had done a better job building up and sort of, planting doubt in the viewer's mind about what that twist was, the ending would have been all that more shocking. As it's done, it's okay, I guess, but it could have been so much more. Psycho has been remade in the late 90s, except it was a shot replica of the movie, which sort of begs the question as to why they even bothered at all. I kind of feel like the sort of untouchable reputation this movie has garnered has sort of made people shy away from wanting to actually, remake it and make another version that changes some substantial stuff from the original. But I really do think that there's room for improvement here and the potential for something incredible. The original Psycho isn't terrible. It's not even really that bad, but considering the reputation that it's garnered, it's not nearly as good as I thought it was going to be. Yeah, there were some good shocks here and there, but overall I feel like the movie could have been a lot better. And to really go into depth as to how it could have been better, let's go into the spoiler part of this video. The main twist in Psycho is that the mother character does not exist. The actual mother of Norman Bates died several years before, and Norman has had a breakdown to convince himself that she's not really dead. He sort of preserved her corpse. They established earlier in the movie that he does a lot of taxidermy, which is another thing that hints a little bit too hard at what the eventual twist was. But he sort of forms this split personality, convincing himself that the mother is still alive, and it's when he's in that other personality that he does these murders. The person that you see killing people, or at least the back of them or their face in shadow, that's actually Norman Bates in female clothing and a wig. There are a lot of things throughout the movie that hint at this being the twist. So even if I didn't know what the twist was going to be going in, I probably would have been able to guess it. To this movie's credit, it does try to obfuscate what this is and make it seem, okay, maybe that's not the case. It seems obvious, but there's something here that contradicts that. The biggest thing they have to throw you off guard is that when you hear the conversation, between Norman Bates and his mother, you can listen in on it at a few points in the movie. Although the first one especially, you seem like the character that's listening in is way too far away to actually hear it. You definitely hear a female voice. It's absolutely two different people talking to each other. There also is a point in the movie where you actually see Norman Bates and the mother in the same place, although you still can't see the mother's face. And, of course, you knew well before that Norman Bates did taxidermy in his spare time, so you can kind of think, okay, maybe that's the taxidermy corpse of the mother. I really feel like if they had put more effort into trying to hide this or trying to convince you that the twist was actually something else, the final twist would have been a lot more shocking. But even as is, they still did something that I consider to be a very bad decision at the very end of the movie. Once Norman Bates is caught, he's taken away, and you see the characters sitting around discussing, and this one character, who I don't even know who they are, I guess the interrogator or something, he spends what feels 20 minutes just thoroughly explaining exactly what happened from every single conceivable angle. No room for questioning, nothing left up to the viewer's imagination. They're just laying out in a nice long essay what exactly is wrong with Norman Bates and how this led up to what happened and why it happened and everything. I really feel like it would have been a lot more disturbing and weird if it was sort of laid out a little bit the basic idea of what's going on, but it's left up to the audience's imagination just how bad it is. And that would also make the final scene of the movie, the one where it reveals just how far gone Norman Bates is, all the more shocking. They could have lowered this down to I don't know, 20 seconds. I got the whole story. Mrs. Bates told me everything. But sir, Mrs. Bates has been dead for years. No. Not to Norman, she isn't. And then it cuts to the scene of Norman Bates in the room, and the voice in his head is the voice of the mother. And he's fully given himself to this delusion, thoroughly convincing himself that he is the mother. I don't ever want to see in a horror movie characters sitting around and discussing from every single angle why exactly the twist is supposed to be scary. Nothing is as scary as what we imagine it being. And we can have our suspicions, but then that scene of Norman Bates fully losing his mind would confirm that it's worse than probably anybody suspected. As sad and probably as condescending as it sounds, to me, Psycho was mostly just a study in wasted potential. I really think that the story could have been told in a much better way than we got. I didn't care for it, but obviously I'm in the minority here. A lot of other people love this movie a lot, and if that's you, that's fine. I just disagree with you. Not terrible, but not really something that I enjoyed. Alright, I'll see you tomorrow.